Welcome to our fun little study group for PP 5361 Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. These are the readings from the required text. Managing Human Behavior in Public and Nonprofit Organizations, Chapter 3.
It's great to be back. And today we're tackling a topic that can sometimes feel like the odd one out on a public administration syllabus.
It really can.
You know, we spend so much time on structure, on hierarchy, budgets, ethics, all very concrete things. But today, the chapter is Fostering Creativity and Innovation.
I have to admit, when I saw the title of Chapter 3, I had a bit of a visceral reaction. It felt like an oxymoron.
Right.
Like jumbo shrimp or friendly fire. You put the word bureaucracy next to the word creativity, and they feel like they should repel each other.
That is the immediate tension, isn't it? We have a very specific cultural script for what government work is supposed to look like.
Oh, absolutely. The script is, gray walls, forms in triplicate, stamping things.
Lots of stamping.
And quoting Regulation 14B, subsection C, it's all about being rigid. And then you picture creativity, and your mind goes to, a chaotic artist's loft.
Yeah, paint everywhere, maybe some freeform jazz playing in the background.
Exactly. People breaking rules just for the fun of it to see what happens.
The stereotype of the artist in the beret versus, the bureaucrat in the polyester blend.
Right, and we're just conditioned to assume that these two species cannot coexist in the same ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
But this chapter, and I was really struck by this, the work of Marshall Dimmock, basically opens by telling us that this separation isn't just wrong, it's dangerous.
Dangerous is absolutely the right word. Dimmock, who was a real titan in this field, he argued that creativity is, and I'm quoting here, perhaps the most important concept in public administration.
Okay, let's just pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
That is a massive claim, the most important.
It is.
More than accountability, more than, say, fiscal responsibility. That feels like hyperbole.
It sounds like it at first, I'll grant you that. But it stops sounding like it when you look at the nature of the work itself. I mean, if public organizations were just factories making toasters, you wouldn't need a lot of creativity.
You'd need efficiency, standardization.
Exactly. But public service doesn't deal with toasters. It deals with what we call wicked problems.
Wicked problems. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in this specific context?
A wicked problem is one that's difficult or frankly impossible to solve because the requirements are incomplete, they're contradictory, and they're always changing.
So like homelessness.
Homelessness is a perfect example. Climate resilience is another. Or, a global pandemic. These are wicked problems. There's no textbook answer for these things. You can't just look up the rule in a binder.
Because the rule was written for a world that didn't have that exact problem yet.
Precisely. So if you just strictly follow the old rules to try and solve a new wicked problem, you are guaranteed to fail. You have to generate a novel solution.
And that right there is the definition of creativity.
That's it. So Dimmock isn't saying that budgeting doesn't matter. He's saying that without creativity, your budget is just funding a more efficient failure.
The text really brings in some heavy artillery to back this up.
Yeah.
It references that 2010 IBM Global CEO study. And I want to dig into this because, a lot of corporate studies can feel a bit self-serving, but this one seemed different.
It was massive. Over 1,500 CEOs and public sector leaders.
Public sector leaders, too. That's important.
Yes. Across 60 nations, 33 industries. This was not a small focus group. And they asked them a really simple question. What is the primary challenge you see in the future?
And my guess would be something like competition or profit margins or, the pace of technology.
You would think so. Those are probably on the list. But the overwhelming answer, the number one thing, was complexity.
Complexity.
The world is becoming interconnected and volatile and just unpredictable in ways we've never seen before. So then they asked the follow-up question. What is the single most important leadership competency needed to navigate this complexity?
And again, this is where I get skeptical. Usually the answers are things like integrity or discipline or vision.
And all of those were on the list. But creativity beat them all. It was number one.
That is genuinely fascinating.
Yeah.
So you have 1,500 leaders from around the world basically admitting we have no idea what's coming next.
So we need people who can make things up as they go along.
In a sense, yeah. They realize that in this new complex environment, the standard operating procedure is a death sentence. You need the ability to disrupt the status quo. You need to be comfortable with ambiguity.
And that, right there, is the mission for this deep dive. We have to dismantle this idea that creativity is just for the arts department. It's a core survival skill for the public sector.
Okay, so if we accept that it's a survival skill, we really need to know what it is. Because I think in everyday conversation, I use the words creativity and innovation almost interchangeably.
A lot of people do.
If I have a cool idea, I might say I'm being innovative. If I change a process at work, I say I'm being creative. But the chapter draws a pretty hard line between them.
It does, and for a really good reason. In a management context, if you don't have accurate language, you can't accurately diagnose your problems. So here's the distinction the book makes.
Lay it on me.
Creativity is the generation of new and useful ideas. Innovation is the successful implementation of those ideas.
New and useful. So those are the two core criteria for creativity.
Yes, you
Yeah.
need both. Novelty plus actionability.
I want to push on that a little.
Hmm.
Let's say I'm working in the Department of Transportation. I have an idea. Let's pave all the highways with recycled glass to reduce landfill waste. That is certainly novel.
Definitely novel.
Is it creative?
Well, is it useful? If the glass shreds everyone's tires and causes a 10-car pileup, then no, it fails the useful test.
So it's not creative, it's just a bizarre thought.
Exactly. Creativity requires that the idea has to have the potential to actually solve the problem you're facing.
Okay, so let's say I refine the idea. I figure out a way to melt and treat the glass so it's smooth and durable and has great traction. Now, my idea is novel and useful.
I've been creative.
Yes, you have. Am I an innovator yet?
Not yet. Right now, you're just a person with a great idea standing in a parking lot. Innovation is the harvest. Innovation is what happens after you convince the stakeholders, you get the budget, you pilot the program, you pave the first mile of road, and people actually drive on it safely.
That distinction feels absolutely critical. Because I can think of a lot of organizations that seem to struggle with one but not the other.
That's the key insight here. You can have an organization that's just brimming with incredibly creative people, dreamers, thinkers, idea generators. But if that organization has zero structure to implement those ideas,
It's not innovative.
it's just noisy. And conversely, you can have an organization that's fantastic at execution, very innovative in its processes, but they have no new ideas to execute.
So they just keep executing the old bad ideas, just more efficiently.
That's a terrifying thought, isn't it? Efficiently executing bad ideas.
It happens more often than you think.
Oh, for sure.
So we need both. But where does the creativity part even come from? The text outlines these different perspectives on what creativity is. And I have to be honest, I think I default to the trait view.
The trait view is very, very common. It's this belief that creativity is basically a personality quirk. You're either born with it or you're not.
Totally. We look at someone who is funny, maybe a little impulsive, wears eccentric glasses, and we say, oh, they're the creative one in the group.
Guilty as charged. I look at my accountant, who's very quiet and incredibly organized, and my first assumption is not creative.
Right.
Then I look at my friend who plays guitar and is always 15 minutes late, and my brain just labels him creative.
But there is a grain of truth there, right? The book mentions that certain personality traits do correlate with creativity.
Oh, absolutely. Things like openness to experience, a certain level of self-confidence, a tolerance for ambiguity, those things definitely help. But the real danger of the trait view is that it makes creativity an exclusive club. Well, if you're a manager and you believe in the trait view, how do you hire? You go out looking for creative types.
And you probably end up ignoring the quiet accountant who might have a brilliant novel idea for streamlining the entire tax code.
Exactly. You miss out on this massive pool of untapped talent. And that's why the text really pushes us toward the skill view and the behavior view.
Okay, so the skill view is what?
The skill view says creativity is a cognitive muscle. It's about divergent thinking, about pattern recognition. And the important part is you can learn it, just like you can learn how to use Excel.
And the behavior view.
That one focuses on actions. It says creative people consistently do specific things. They ask more questions, they observe things more closely, they build networks with people way outside their own field.
I like that. I like both of those.
Why is that?
Because it's democratic. It means I don't have to change my fundamental personality. I just have to change what I do. I can learn the skill. I can adopt the behaviors.
And that leads right into what the chapter calls the integrated view, which is where most of the research really lands today. Creativity isn't just one thing. It's an interaction between the person, the task, and crucially, the environment.
So you could be a naturally creative person, but if I stick you in a windowless basement with a boss who screams at you every time you try something new,
Your creativity is going to wither and die. The environment matters. A lot.
We are definitely going to talk about that screaming boss later.
Yeah.
But first, I want to walk through the process itself. The chapter breaks creativity down into these 5 stages. And, while listing stages can feel a bit academic,
A little textbooky.
yeah, but I found this model really validating because it explains why I sometimes feel like I'm doing absolutely nothing when I'm actually, doing my most important work.
The 5 stages model is fantastic for demystifying the eureka moment. We have this romantic idea that brilliant ideas just strike us like lightning out of a clear blue sky.
Right.
But the model shows that the lightning strike is just stage 4. There's a lot of work that comes before it.
Okay, so let's walk through them. Stage 1 is preparation.
This is the unglamorous part. It's the homework. It's conscious information gathering, deep immersion in the problem. You simply cannot have a creative breakthrough about a subject you know nothing about.
The text uses that great example of the National Weather Service.
Yes. Their problem was that they needed to redesign their website because the public wasn't reacting correctly to storm warnings. A life or death problem.
And they didn't just jump in and start sketching cool web pages with lightning bolt graphics.
No, they did the deep preparation. They went out and they interviewed users and they discovered this fundamental insight. The public did not know the difference between a watch and a warning.
Which is a crucial distinction. And if you skip the preparation stage, you might design a beautiful, award-winning website that still confuses everyone, gets them heard.
Correct. So after all that preparation comes stage 2. Concentration. This is the focus phase. You're wrestling with the problem, trying to fit the pieces together logically. It's active, conscious, and often very frustrating work.
And it's when you hit the wall in the concentration phase that you move to my favorite, stage 3, incubation.
Ah, yes.
And I want to defend this stage because to the outside world, to your boss, incubation looks a lot like slacking off.
It really does. It looks like taking a walk. It looks like staring out the window or tidying your desk or working on a completely different project. But cognitively, this is the black box. It's essential.
Explain the black box.
You've fed all the data, all the logical connections into your brain during preparation and concentration. Now you need to step back and let your subconscious mind take over and process it.
Why does stepping back help? Why can't I just brute force the answer by concentrating harder?
Because your conscious mind is very linear, it's logical, it follows the paths it already knows. But the solution to a whipped problem, by definition, lies off the known path. When you distract your conscious mind with a walk or some other task, your subconscious starts making these remote, unusual associations. It connects the weather warning problem with, say, a traffic light concept you saw an hour ago. That unexpected connection is creativity.
So, a good manager needs to understand that if their employee is taking a 20-minute walk around the block, they might be doing their most important work of the day.
Ideally, yes. But that requires a very high-trust environment, which can be rare.
Okay, so after the walk comes stage 4, illumination.
The aha moment, the eureka. The connection is finally made, and it bubbles up from your subconscious into your conscious mind. It feels instantaneous, but it's really the product of all those hours of incubation.
And finally, a very bureaucratic step, stage 5, verification. Because just because you had an epiphany in the shower doesn't mean it's legal or ethical or affordable.
This is the reality check. You have to take that brilliant, fragile new idea and test it against all the real-world constraints. This is where the dreamer has to shake hands with the bureaucrat again.
The text also throws in a term here that sounded a little like a sci-fi villain to me, chaotic systems.
It's a portmanteau, right? Chaos and order.
It sounds a bit like a consultant buzzword. Is there actual substance to it?
I think there is. The core concept is that creativity doesn't happen in perfect order, and it doesn't happen in total chaos. It thrives right on the edge of chaos.
The messy middle.
The messy middle. If you have total order, rigid rules, total predictability, you get stagnation. If you have total chaos, you just have noise and nothing ever gets produced. The chaotic state is that sweet spot, and it implies that the creative process is not linear.
Right. You don't just march from stage 1 to stage 5.
No. You might go from incubation back to preparation because you realize you missed something. Then you might jump to verification to test a half-formed idea, then go back to concentration. It's messy.
And that messiness is deeply uncomfortable for government. Government is designed for order. We love linear timelines. Phase 1 is complete. We will now commence phase 2.
Exactly. So the real leadership challenge becomes, Are you brave enough to tolerate a little bit of chaos? Are you willing to let the process be chaotic to get the right result, even if it completely messes up your Gantt chart?
That is a big, big ask. Now, let's talk about the people who are living inside this chaotic mess. The text makes a distinction between innovators and adapters, and I found this so helpful for understanding workplace dynamics.
This comes from Michael Curtin's adaptation innovation theory, and it's not about who's better or worse, it's about style. It views creativity as a spectrum. On one end of that spectrum, you have the adapters.
And these are the people who want to do things better.
Right. They accept the current paradigm, the existing rules, the structure, and they look for ways to improve it. If the form is too long and confusing, the adapter says, let's remove 3 questions and change the font size to make it clearer.
They're essential for stability and efficiency.
Absolutely. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the innovators.
The innovators want to do things differently.
Totally differently. They challenge the paradigm itself. They look at that same form and they say, why are we even collecting this data? Let's burn the form and build an app that does this automatically.
And I can immediately see why these two groups would just drive each other completely crazy in a meeting.
Oh, they often despise each other. The adapter looks at the innovator and sees this reckless, disruptive troublemaker who's going to get everyone sued. Their thought is, why can't you just follow the rules like everyone else?
And at the same time, the innovator looks at the adapter and sees a dinosaur, a stick in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you wasting your time rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic? The whole ship is sinking.
Exactly. But the text makes this crucial point. You need both. A healthy organization needs both. If you only have innovators, you have a chaotic startup that runs out of cash in 6 months because no one remembered to send out the invoices.
All vision, no execution.
Right. And if you only have adapters, you become Blockbuster Video. You have a perfectly organized store with alphabetized DVDs, but you're completely obsolete.
So the manager's real job is to be the translator between these two types. To tell the adapter, we need his crazy idea to survive, and to tell the innovator, we need her to make sure your crazy idea is actually legal and feasible.
Precisely. It's about valuing that friction between them, not trying to eliminate it.
But that friction so often stops us. Which brings us to the barriers. Why do so many good ideas die on the vine? Segment 4 talks about mental blocks and organizational blocks. Let's start with the mental ones, with vertical thinking.
This is a concept from Edward de Bono, and the analogy he uses is great. Imagine you're digging a hole to find water. Vertical thinking is just digging that same hole deeper and deeper.
You're convinced water is down there, so you just keep digging.
Right. You're using the same logic, the same assumptions. You're just trying harder. We need to cut the budget. Okay, let's cut 5%. Still not enough. Let's cut 10%.
That's vertical thinking.
Yes. And lateral thinking, which is creativity, is stopping, climbing out of the hole and saying, wait a minute. Maybe we're digging in the wrong place entirely. Maybe the problem isn't the cost of the program, but the entire service delivery model.
The other mental block mentioned is language, and this one really hit home for me. The idea that the words we use can actually build the walls around our thinking.
They absolutely do. The text uses a policing example that's very powerful. If a police department's internal language is all about fighting crime, what kind of solutions does that evoke?
It evokes a war. You think of soldiers, enemies, capturing bad guys, territory.
And so your solutions will naturally be things like bigger guns, faster cars, more arrests. But what happens if you consciously change the language to promoting community safety?
The whole landscape shifts.
It does.
Suddenly, a new streetlight is a tool for community safety. An after-school basketball program is a tool for community safety. You would never even think of a basketball program if you're stuck in war mode.
Exactly. Your language defines the menu of possible solutions. If you want different answers, you have to start by changing the words you use to describe the problem.
So those are the blocks inside our own heads. But then you have the organizational blocks, which can be even more powerful, like the not invented here syndrome.
Oh, NIH. This is the organizational immune system kicking in. An idea comes from the outside, from another agency, from a consultant, maybe even just a different department down the hall, and the immediate reaction is to reject it.
They don't understand our unique context. They don't get our culture.
It's a pride thing, for sure, but it's also a fear thing. It's fear of losing control, fear of the unknown, and it couples with another huge barrier: knowledge hoarding.
In a bureaucracy, information is power.
Absolutely. If I'm the only one who knows how to fix the old database and I teach you how to do it, I'm suddenly less indispensable. So I keep that knowledge to myself.
Which completely kills the verification and implementation stages we talked about. because nobody is collaborating.
And it all happens within an environment where, as the text notes, thinking doesn't look like working. In a high-pressure government office, if you aren't typing or on the phone, the perception is that you're wasting taxpayer dollars.
Which kills the incubation phase immediately. There's no time for walks or staring out the window.
Not a chance.
So how do we fix this? How do we fix the culture?
Yeah.
This leads us to motivation. And the research here is, it feels pretty counterintuitive for the corporate world, but actually great for the public sector.
It really is. The research is incredibly clear that extrinsic motivation, things like money, bonuses, fear of punishment, is actually detrimental to creativity.
Wait, say that again. It's bad for creativity.
It's bad for it. It narrows your focus. When there's a reward on the line, you don't take risks. You just want to do the safest, quickest thing to get the reward.
So if I tell my team, I'll give you a $500 bonus for the most creative idea, I'll actually get worse ideas.
You'll almost certainly get safer, more incremental ideas. You'll get adapter ideas, not innovator ideas, because creativity is driven by intrinsic motivation.
Curiosity, passion, the challenge of the puzzle itself.
Exactly. People are most creative when they genuinely enjoy the work and feel it has meaning.
And this is where that concept of public service motivation gives us a huge advantage. Most people don't go into government or nonprofits to get rich. They go because they care about the mission.
That's it. We have a workforce that is already, by its nature, intrinsically motivated to solve these wicked problems. We just need to stop demotivating them with red tape and micromanagement. We need to design jobs that give people autonomy.
The text mentions the famous Google 20% time policy, where engineers could spend a whole day a week working on whatever personal project they wanted. Gmail came out of that.
Right. And while a social caseworker can't just take Fridays off to tinker, the principle holds. The principle is autonomy. If you give your staff some control over how they achieve their goals, they will find better ways to do it. If you micromanage every keystroke, they will shut down and just follow the procedure.
There's also this concept of the affect creativity cycle, which basically says happy people are smarter.
In a way, yes. It sounds simplistic, but the neuroscience backs it up. Positive affect, feeling good, feeling safe, feeling optimistic, it literally broadens our cognitive scope. We see more connections, we're more open to new ideas.
And negative affect.
Negative affect, fear, stress, anxiety puts us into survival mode. We get tunnel vision. We focus only on the threat in front of us. So that toxic screaming boss we mentioned earlier, he isn't just unpleasant, he's literally shrinking the cognitive capacity of his entire team.
It's a biological argument for basic kindness and respect in the workplace.
It really is. A positive environment isn't just nice to have, it's a strategic necessity for problem solving.
Okay, let's get practical. Let's get to the toolkit in segment 6. I'm a manager, I've got a wicked problem, my team is stuck in vertical thinking. What do I actually do in the meeting tomorrow? The text lists a few techniques. I'd love to try one live, the idea box, or matrix analysis.
This is a great one. It's a brute force method for generating lateral connections. Basically, you make a grid. Along one axis, you list the core parameters of your problem, and then under each one, you list a bunch of different variations.
And then you just mix and match them random.
Exactly.
Okay, let's try it. Let's say our wicked problem is we need to get more young people to volunteer in our city.
Great. So what are some parameters? Maybe the target audience, the type of activity, the location, and the incentive.
Okay, I can work with that. For target audience, let's say high schoolers, college students, and at-risk youth.
Okay.
For activity. Picking up trash, tutoring younger kids, and providing tech support for seniors.
I like it.
For location. In parks, in schools, and online. And for incentive. Pizza party, college application credit, and, I don't know, meeting a local celebrity.
Perfect. Now, the key is to just blindly pick one from each column. Don't try to make it make sense. Just point.
Okay, here we go. I've got at-risk youth doing tech support online for the incentive of meeting a celebrity.
Okay. So at first glance, that sounds totally weird and random. But let's stop and actually think about it for a second.
All right.
Could we create a program where at-risk youth are trained to provide remote IT support for senior citizens via Zoom? And if they log a certain number of volunteer hours, they get a VIP meet and greet with a player from the local sports team.
Huh. That's not a bad idea at all. It builds job skills for the youth. It solves a real problem for seniors who are isolated. And the incentive is actually really desirable for that demographic.
And you probably would never have arrived at that specific combination if you just sat around a table saying, how do we get more kids to pick up trash? The matrix forces the collision of unrelated concepts, and in that collision you find novelty.
That's a really powerful, simple tool. Another one in the book is synectics. This one feels a little more abstract, more out there.
It is. It's all about using analogies to make the familiar strange so you can see it with fresh eyes. One of the core techniques is the personal analogy. You imagine that you are the object or the problem.
So if I'm a traffic engineer trying to fix a persistent traffic jam, I imagine I am the car.
Or you imagine you are the road itself. How do you feel?
I feel crushed. I feel hot. I feel constricted. I wish I could stretch.
I wish I could stretch.
Okay.
Wow, okay, that might immediately lead you to the idea of reversible lanes that change direction during rush hour or using highway shoulders as temporary lanes.
Exactly. It gets you out of your manager or engineer mindset and into the physical reality of the problem, which can unlock completely different kinds of solutions.
Then there's design thinking. This is a huge buzzword right now, but I want to talk about the specific example in the text because it's one everyone can relate to and most people dread. The TSA.
The Transportation Security Administration. The classic example of a bureaucracy that people love to hate.
And if you think about the before picture, it's pretty grim. Long, snaking lines, officers barking orders, gray bins, a general feeling of high stress and anxiety, and the goal was detect objects.
And the underlying assumption was, we need to be rigid and intimidating to catch the bad guys. But then they brought in design thinking, which always starts with empathy. They actually looked at the user experience.
And what did they realize?
They realized that a chaotic, high-stress environment actually makes security harder, not easier.
How so?
Think about it. If a terrified grandmother is crying because an officer is yelling at her about her water bottle, it's very hard for another officer to spot the actual terrorist who is sweating nervously a few feet away. The ambient noise of stress creates a perfect camouflage for the real threat.
So they changed the whole goal. They shifted it from detecting objects to creating calmer environments.
They changed the physical layout, the signage, the furniture, but the most important change was the training. They moved away from rote, scripted interactions and started teaching officers how to engage in genuine conversation. Where are you headed today? Oh, that's great. Business or pleasure?
It sounds like simple small talk, but it's actually a behavioral detection tool. You're looking for deviations for the baseline.
Exactly. But to get to that solution, they had to start by asking the magic question of design thinking. How might we? Instead of, we can't because.
How might we? That phrase itself feels like it opens a door. It suspends judgment.
It invites possibility. It's the opposite of, we've always done it this way.
We have time for one last case study from the book, and I love this one. Decatur, Georgia. This is all about community involvement.
This is such a great example of a government being willing to let go of control, that chaotic bravery we talked about earlier. The city of Decatur wanted a new strategic plan, a new identity.
And usually a city hires a very expensive consultant, they hold a few boring town halls, and they end up with a slogan like Decatur, a center of excellence for living, working, and thriving.
And no one cares. It gets printed on a banner and then forgotten. So instead, Decatur did a 6-word story contest inspired by Hemingway. They just asked the residents, define our city in only 6 words.
Now think about the risk there. You're a city official. You are opening a public forum where people can submit anything. They could write, Decatur, the traffic here is hell. Or much, much worse.
They risked the chaos.
They did. But because they trusted their community, they got absolute gold. They got slogans like Blue Dot in a Red State, and my personal favorite, Decatur, a squirrel in every attic.
A squirrel in every attic. It's so good.
I love it. It's weird, it's funny, it's memorable, and it's probably true.
And the best part is the city didn't bury it because it wasn't official enough. They embraced it. They printed it on T-shirts. They put it on souvenir fans. It created this genuine bottom-up sense of place and ownership that a consultant could never, ever manufacture.
That is public sector innovation at its best. It wasn't expensive. It was just brave. It proves that government doesn't have to be gray and boring.
It can be fun. It can have a personality.
Okay, so we've covered the definition, the process, the people, the barriers, the tools. Let's try to synthesize all of this for the listener who has to go back to their agency tomorrow. What are the key actionable takeaways?
I think there are 3 big ones. First, change your vocabulary. Start actively listening to yourself and your team in meetings. Do you say yes, but a lot?
The classic idea killer.
It stops an idea cold. Make a conscious effort to switch to yes and, even if the idea seems crazy. Yes, and to do that, we would need to change the law. So how could we start that process? It builds momentum instead of killing it.
Keep the ball moving. Okay, what's number 2?
Second, Respect the incubation phase. If you're stuck on a problem, stop digging the same hole deeper. Go for a walk. Switch to a different task for an hour. And if you're a manager, defend that time for your team. If you see someone staring at the ceiling, your first thought shouldn't be they're lazy. It should be maybe they're processing.
And the final takeaway.
Own your creativity. Just stop saying, I'm not the creative type. It's a self-limiting belief. If your job involves solving problems, you are creative. The IBM study proved it's the single most important leadership skill for the future. You cannot afford to opt out of it by telling yourself a story that you're not good enough.
That brings us right back to where we started. Public service deals with the hardest, messiest, most wicked problems on Earth. We don't have the luxury of just following the old rules, because the old rules clearly aren't fixing them.
That really is the bottom line. Creativity in our field isn't a luxury. It isn't a nice to have. It is a moral imperative. If we genuinely want to solve homelessness or improve public education or tackle climate change, we must do things differently.
I want to leave everyone with that provocative thought we touched on earlier, that idea of the bravery required for the chaotic.
Yes. The systems we work in, the bureaucracies, they crave order, they crave control and predictability. But the solutions we so desperately need are almost always found in the messy, unpredictable, chaotic middle.
So the question for you to take back to your work is this. Are you brave enough to let things be a little messy? Are you brave enough to lose control for just a moment in order to find the right answer?
That's a scary question for a bureaucrat, but it might be the most important one you can ask. Thanks for joining our study group. Go forth, be brave, and let there be a squirrel in every attic.
See you next time.